So hey there fellow YouTubers, Frank Bush here again. In today's video I'm going to be building out a camp sink. I've got a larger project that I'm kind of working on, and I thought I'd just kind of break it into a few different smaller videos, and that way I can kind of chunk it off before you guys end up seeing the finished product if you're watching on a regular. But yeah, if you're interested in how to kind of put together a cheap camp sink and that kind of thing, then stay tuned and I'll go through it. Okay, so I'll walk through the different components that I have here, and then I'll go through the assembly, yeah? So this is just a stainless steel salad bowl. I think I picked these up at the dollar store. I got them for about $3 each, so, really cheap, that kind of thing. But made sure I got a stainless steel one, and that way it wouldn't rust out or anything. And I own quite a few of these bowls, so I know that I've had them for a few years now. And I just thought, well, one for the sacrifice, if you will, but I know they won't rust out and that kind of thing, right? And then I've got a small length of garden hose, and it's just a 6-foot length, just a little cheapie I picked up at the hardware store. All this stuff I got at my local hardware store, yeah. And then just a little faucet, if you will. Nothing complex there. I've got where I can connect onto the garden hose here, and this connects onto the plumbing that'll come out of the bowl, if you will. And then here I've got a bulkhead. Now, the concept of these, if people aren't familiar with them, is really when you drill a hole in something, you can attach this and it'll just give you almost like a drain, in essence. But you can use these types of things on larger water vessels or liquid vessels, things that hold liquids and that kind of stuff. And what I have is just a little cap that goes on top of it, and that in essence will be like my stopper. So I can turn around. This will actually have a dual stopper system in here, but the thinking really is this just screws directly into there and will act as a stopper to stop the water from flowing out from the top side, if you will, the bowl side. And then the little spigot piece thing, this one I'll be able to turn it on and off from the underside. Yeah. And then all else I have here is just a bit of polytetrafluoroethylene, some plumber's tape. So, this is commonly available, cheap stuff. And that's just to cover some of the threading. So this will be, like I said, a really simple build out. There's not much to it. And in future videos, I'll show actually setting this into like a portable kitchen setup. And yeah, I'll walk through that in a future video, but needless to say, I thought I'd just focus on the building of the sink in this video, yeah? So I'll get on with the build now. Now, the first order of business I'm going to need to do is, right in the dead center of this bowl here, I'm going to want to just drill a little pilot hole, and then I'm going to want to use my trusty step bit to drill the hole through this steel. And yeah, so I'll just cut to those scenes and start to get on with the build, yeah? Alright, so first order of business is just get a little step stool so I could get up off the floor, and that way I'm not drilling holes in my floor. That's never a good sign. And just got a couple pieces of scrap wood here. Now the thinking really is, like I said, that was all just to kind of elevate it off the ground, right? Now the thinking really is I've got a little Sharpie pen. I'm just going to turn around and identify where the center is, within reason as best I can. Seems to be about there. Yeah, that looks all right to me. And camera's probably not going to see that, but like I say, just simple little black dot, right? Now I'm going to turn around and take my drill and just grab a drill bit here. Un momento, por favor. Now I'm just going with just a small little drill bit, and that way, I can create the pilot hole. And I know it's kind of overkill to walk through every single step of things, but for people that have never done anything like this at all, it's kind of walk through every bit of the process, if you will. So I'm just, what I should do, I'll stop the camera here for 2 seconds. I'm just going to go grab a little nail so I can kind of punch a little pre-hole before I even drill the pilot hole, yep. All right, well, I just threw down another piece of board I had, and just to kind of put this in the camera easy. And then I've just got a little screw. I'm going to hold that right above the dot that I just made. See if I can give it a good whack. Off a little bit. Never a good sign. There we go, that's closer. Either way, that'll just drill out. So, needless to say, now that I got my pilot hole set in there, I'll just slide these back over. See if we can get that. There we go. Switch up to the pilot hole with the drill. Go. Like I say, just put a little pilot hole in there now. And now, for the next step, in fact, I might just go double deep on all of this. I'm going to turn around and take my step bit. And I've used this in lots of previous videos, but if you haven't seen such a thing, kind of a little multi-size drill bit. It has the ability to go through plastics and metals and that kind of stuff. It goes all the way from, you know, really small to really large holes, if you will, and it'll step through as it goes, yeah? So, but before I even get into that, I'll take my bulkhead. Now the threads on the bulkhead go reverse to what it normally would be, so turning it right is loose, yeah? Just the nature of how the bulkheads work, that kind of thing. But just kind of pop and separate those. And I just want to see now of, so it looks like I'm going to go right up to the full size drill, yeah? So, which makes it simple. But at the same point in time, I might have to switch what I'm drilling on, because I'm going to end up going deep enough where it'll want to go right through, yeah? In fact, I'll just flip this over this way now, and we'll just go this way. We'll see if this will do the job. There's a bit of burring on that pilot hole I set, so. Like I said, I don't really do a lot of kind of hard instructions when it comes to this stuff. A lot of it's just, I eyeball things and just go. But either way, just set that on there. And I know, sorry for covering the camera. Now I don't want to put a lot of pressure and I want to take my time when I'm doing this. Let each step go through. Now the further along it gets, you can see it started to throw a bit of spark there. Just let that cool down for a minute. This thing will definitely generate a fair bit of heat and stuff, right? And I do have eyewear on, just so you know, if you're curious. But in essence, I just want to keep pushing through until I get all the way through the full drill bit. Now, it looks okay on this side. There's not really a lot of burring, and you definitely want to be careful when it comes to this kind of stuff. Of you don't want to turn around and you know, make yourself bleed or anything. But now on the inside, it's not quite as smooth. So in order to kind of remedy that, I'm just going to turn around and give it a light touch that way, and in doing so it kind of flattens it out and takes the burrs off. So I'll do that a little bit more, and then I'll grab a bit of sandpaper and just clean up this hole. So you can see, just kind of giving it a light sanding just to make sure that there's no, you know, burrs that are biting. It's all starting to feel pretty smooth now. Make sure I do the same on this side. Easy enough, right? Alright, so as you can see, I drilled the hole. It's about as close to the center as I could get it offhand. I'm not overly worried, to be quite honest. This is going to be a camp sink, but either way, the hole's pretty smooth now, where I'm not catching myself on anything, so that's always a good sign. Now this bulkhead that I have here, the bulkhead will just feed right through. Now there's kind of a rubber stopper on there. It'll feed right through and out the other side, as you can see. Now the thinking really is, I might have to shift camera angles. Yeah, I'll shift camera angles and just put this on. But the first part is, that's how it'll end up looking in the bottom of the sink, if you will. And I know there's a bit of price tag sticker on there. I'm not worried, that'll just come off. I got the parts that did get into the threading and stuff. But either way, I'll shift camera angles here and then I'll just assemble this bulkhead, yep. Okay, so I just shifted the cameras to look kind of more straight down, and hopefully I'll be able to catch this. So there's little nubby bits that stick out on both sides here, yeah? I'm just going to hold on to those, and then on the back side, I'm going to take the rubber gasket that it has, put that on, and then it's got this threaded nut. Always when you're filming, right? In fact, and remember, left is tight when it comes to these, yeah? Now, people have the tendency where they really want to crank down on this thing. And that's not really the most recommended. So I'm just holding it on the inside. I'll buy those nubs so I can kind of get a good handle on it. Now on the back nut, I'm just going to turn that to be hand tight. There. And now that's on there. That's not going anywhere. And when it comes to the stopper, it's simply just sit down into here where I can seal off that basin if I want, yeah? And when it comes to on this side now, like I said, just want it hand tight, you know, as good and tight as I can get it, but still hand tight, right? Now when it comes to the inner threading here, it's going to feed up through to the sink. There's threading on the insides here, but now on this little spigot, I'm going to turn around and put on some of this plumber's thread, or plumber's tape I should say. I just normally know it as PTFE, but such is life. And I don't want to put a huge amount of this stuff on. I just want to have a good thin strip so it doesn't interfere with the threading too much. You know, you don't want to go 5 layers deep of this stuff, if you will. And it gets hard to thread things on, and I want to keep it as flat as possible. But this will just help ensure that, in essence, this will just help ensure that leaks won't come through this threaded join, if you will, right? So now that's simply just going to turn around and screw. Let's see if I can get that to go. I might have put this on the wrong direction. I'm running counter thread, I think. We'll see. Oh, there we go. And just that easy. You know, I'm connected now. And like I say, hand tight again. I'm just going to put that on as snug as I can get it. And I'm on. In essence, this is the basic functionings of my sink. Now, people ask why I didn't use a drain and that kind of stuff. I could get more of a flush mount than that. A lot of the strainers that you see have a fairly thick space in between the connections when it comes to the bottom and the top of the sink. You know, most commercially available sinks have kind of a width to them, whereas because this is more just like a steel bowl, you know, the width is minimal at best. So, you know, using this here really to me was a more ideal setup, even though I have a bit more, you know, water that'll pool in the bottom. Like I said, it still is a camp stove. But needless to say, one of the reasons why this is kind of built out this way as well is now instead of using like expensive, you know, Pexi plumbing and that kind of stuff, you know, that stuff can get costly. Garden hoses are readily available and they're cheap, right? you know, so as fast as I could get from the drain out to a garden hose connection was really my ideal objective. And so this will simply just screw on as you would any other garden hose. And I'm connected with a line running from my wastewater to just kind of feed off into the ground, yeah? And I'll see if I can shift the camera angles and show you the underside now. You can see there's kind of a natural slope and flow of the water coming out of the sink and down that hose. So gravity will just feed it out, and then I'll straighten this hose out, and it can feed to the outside of my tent if I've got this in a tent and that kind of thing, right? Or, you know, if I've got it sitting on a camp table, I can just feed it away from your feet and that kind of stuff. But one way or the other now, I'll kind of shift gears and just move this outside, and we'll give it a test to see if it holds water and if it's dripping through any of these connections now, yeah? Okay, so I've moved outside now and kind of dragged the gear out here. And now I'm just going to take some of this water that I've got in this bucket here, or water container if you will, and pour it into the sink and see if it'll hold water to begin with. Now, if you're kind of curious to what this setup is, this is part of my portable kitchen. This is just the component that'll be holding the sink. And like I say, that's why there's kind of multiple builds in this video, but needless to say, this will be the unit that'll end up holding the sink in the long run. Right now, this is just a temporary setup to get the sink raised, and that way the hoses can flow and all that kind of stuff, and I can check for leaks and that kind of happiness, right? So let me just grab the water jar here. Pretty sure we're ready to roll. And this has a spigot on it, but now I'm just gonna pour in a bowl of water. Try to do it without spilling too much over the sides. And just see if that's holding water. Everything feels bone dry down here so far, which is always a good sign of definitely doesn't seem to be any leakage. I'll bring the camera down and give you a closer look. Here, let me cut scenes. So I guess first order business, I'll just show you the sink itself and its capacity. Like I say, I'll have a faucet running into this and that kind of stuff, but as you can see, easily big enough to, you know, do basic sink stuff, if you will, when you're out in the woods, for sure. Be able to clean some dishes and you know, wash your hands and face and that kind of stuff, yeah. And this all seems to be holding it right. Like I say, I'll switch camera angles and show you the underside, see if there's any water coming out at all. And like I say, down here it's all bone dry. I'm not feeling a drop of water coming through. So you can see this was really quick and easy project. Obviously I've got that cap in the top of the sink now, so what I'm going to do while I've got the camera running down here, I'm just going to hold on, let me lift the camera for 2 seconds. Sorry, I need to shift the hose kind of to a better location so it's not too close to me. I haven't straightened the hose out obviously at this point, but I just want it aiming away from me. And so I'm gonna, on the top now, that little cap on the bulkhead, I'm just gonna remove that cap now and see how the flow is and see if there's any leakage that's happening now that the water's allowed to flow through that zone. So, and it's draining out now. I'm gonna give a top view. It's not the fastest drain in the world, but you know, it just does what it does, right? And now when it comes to the underside, like I say, now that there's water flowing out here, I want to make sure there's not even a drop of water coming out. I'm not feeling anything anywhere. So that's good. Of now down out the hose drain, you can see the water just slowly trickles out of the setup, right? And that way you're not going to get this rush of water that's going to end up filling the land. And if you run a hose off, you know, you dig a small little hole by the end of the hose, you can have it where it just fills into there and you don't get water, you know, soaking the land around you, if you will. So either way, this all seems to be working pretty well. Like I say, I'm down to the level of the bulkhead now, and like I said, didn't see one drop of water coming out here at all. which is exactly what I wanted to see, of just nothing, bone dry. So that's perfect. So either way, I'll cut angles here. So and then, like I say, when you're using a bulkhead here, the bit of pool of water sits because this little, you know, stopper, if you will, is so high up in the water. But you know, my thinking really is I'm going to probably get a knife and just cut into the side here a little bit and just allow it to kind of slowly drain that out. But you know, I mean, it's maybe a third of a cup of water. There's not a lot down there, right? But the only thing left to test now really is going to be the little faucet head on the underneath. So I'm just going to tighten that up now and not use this stopper at all. And we'll give this another dole of water. Hopefully I tighten that up properly. I just want to test that brass faucet itself. Like I say, kind of the secondary stopper. One of the reasons why I have two on this setup is, you know, when you're out in the backcountry, little things like this get lost and disappear forever. I want to have it where, you know, I like the idea of being able to use it on the top side where I can just plug off the water and that kind of thing. But I also like the idea where if I lose that bad boy, you know, and I still want to have the functionality of having a sink that I can stop without having to turn around and cut a wooden stopper and that kind of stuff, you know, which is easy enough. But either way, I didn't want to have to deal with that down the road. So having two stoppers on this little connection area to me was a perfect setup. So I'll just, it looks like we're holding water without any real loss at this point on the top. I'll shift camera angles and show the bottom, make sure the brass isn't leaking anywhere, you know, given that that's the main one doing the stopping of things now. Well, we can see now on the underside, this faucet seems to be holding cleanly. I'm not seeing any loss of water in the sink in the top. It's all being held on nicely. And like I said, if I lose that little stopper that goes in the top, it's easy enough for me to turn around and just open this up. And I'm wanting to do this kind of on camera because I want to see if any drops of water come out along these lines or anything. That's really what I'm hunting for. Like I say, the water's already draining now out from the sink above. And that all seems to be bone dry. So, like I say, a real simple build. There's not much to it. But now, when it comes to this camp setup that I plan on doing, this portable camp setup, I'm going to be using it with the walled tent and using it with the ice tent and that kind of stuff. If you've watched previous videos of mine, I've got a few tents where this kind of thing I'll be able to set up inside that really ideally. But I'll pan back and just kind of do some closing scenes and we'll call it a video, yeah? So like I say, this is only part of a larger camp kitchen setup that I plan on doing with this stuff. The sink build was really just one of the first components that I needed to do. And I'll stop now and kind of make a quick mention too of, you know, if you're wanting to catch your gray water or if you're wanting to just run it off, right? I know some people don't give a crap and others do. So needless to say, given that I'm using, maybe I should shift the camera angles. Yeah, let me shift the camera angle. So you can see in this simple setup now, I'm just draining off, you know, to a garden hose, and I could run the length of this out. As long as this doesn't increase in height above, you know, where it's the release is, the water will just drain out of the system, yeah? But you know, gravity does its thing, if you will. But if you wanted to contain gray water and have it be, you know, where it was, you were capturing it and then you were just kind of, you know, if you were doing this in the back of a van or something where you're not just going to have the water bleed out and, you know, wherever, you could easily turn around and set a water container underneath, you know, have it where you've got a little adapter here that just connects this garden hose and feeds it right into here. And you could have a gray water system, if you will, that you were capturing all that water easy enough. And that's one of the good parts about doing this with the garden hose. It gives me the ability where if I had a short piece of hose that I just cut, if you will, off an old garden hose, I could easily strap that on and feed it into gray water buckets. This is really ideally being used for camping out in the backcountry and that kind of thing. So I'm not worried about a bit of water runoff, you know, gray water, if you will. But if you were worried about containing your gray water and then disposing of it as you went through time, you know, it's easy enough to just adjust a hose and feed into one of these containers. And like I said, this whole thing is part of a larger construct that I'm doing. It's still going to be like compact and portable, that'll all just kind of fold down into a small, easy to carry case. But I want to get to the point where I'm pretty well being able to run the better part of a full kitchen, if you will. You know, so that's the primary objective, but still have it be that it's only 5-10 pounds to move an entire kitchen. You know, that kind of stuff. So like I say, I'm going to cut it here and wrap this video up. But if you enjoy this type of content, you know, please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching. Yeah, cheers.